up, PMC? I'm like,
I know, it's just bad. Anyway, good day, UBC people. It is your boy, the Verd, here, joined by my other major analyst partner, D-Pad Gamer.
what's going on, everybody? Let's get this thing done.
Yeah, I totally didn't just get a McAfee alert that popped up just as I was trying to record this video. That definitely didn't happen. No, no, no. Anyway, so what we're going to be doing today, guys, is something that people are always keen for, which is the post-draft power rankings. Now, obviously, no battles have happened yet, so when it comes to these rankings, it's going to be based off of how we feel the people have drafted, how we feel the balances in their teams, and our own opinions of the balance in their teams. And finally, looking maybe at a bit of their battling history now. Obviously, D-Pad doesn't know too many of these people when it comes to battling ability, but I know a fair few, and so I'm going to be able to give a bit more of an insight into that. But we're going to try and make it short, sharp, and shiny. The point of the power rankings is more showing how we feel the teams are going throughout the season, guys. So don't read too much into it. And as always, it is our opinion at the end of the day. So if you feel like you haven't been put in a decent place in the ranking, please don't come in and hate on us for it. Just feel free to prove us wrong with your battling skill. There's no need, for hostility. Just try and prove us wrong throughout the season. That's all we expect from you guys. So, without further ado, man, are you ready? Can we get this thing started?
Yep. So I think the best way that we should probably do this is like if you cover your 14 and let's say mine is like 11 or 12 or whatever, then I can explain why I'm doing that.
Alright, fair enough, because I think we do have a few similar ones down the bottom. So I'm going to start with my number 14 team, which is the Honolulu Horluchas. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I love me some Kira Black. I love me some Jirachi. And I love me some Mega Altaria. Here are the big problems I have with this team. So first and foremost, for what you guys should know by now, it will be affected in round 2. So I'm more looking at this team round 2 wise. That's going to be the main team he's going through the season with. He's dropped Blissey for Greninja. He's dropped Ariados for Steelix. And he's dropped Emboar for Mienshao. Now, while I feel maybe dropping Blissey is a good idea, I honestly am not a huge fan of it. I feel he definitely needed that kind of bulk with Blissey and a nice Wish Passer, because Jirachi can do it, but it's not that great. And it paired really nicely with Slowbro, and he could have dropped Slowbro anyway because he already had the Psychic typing in Jirachi, could have picked up the Water typing in Greninja, and still had the bulky aspects of the team, because Blissey plus Mega Altaria is still a pain to get through. I do like the Fairy Dragon Steel Core, but I feel with this team there is not enough bulk. I feel like he's going to be forced to run a lot of his offensive Pokemon defensively, and that means he can get overrun. I feel like obviously Jirachi, Kieran Black, and Mega Altaria are great, but overall I just feel the team is completely out of balance and is going to struggle this season.
So I believe, let me check right. I believe I have them at number. I have them at number 12 here. So they kind of stay on the list still. You don't to be able to promote the battle. To me,
one sec, man. Hold on, just hold on a sec. You're sounding like really, really distorted right now.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pause the recording for a sec, guys, just so we can get good. Alright, we are back, guys. Apologies for that small audio issue. It is all good now, but you said you had the Horluchas at 12?
Yes, I have them at 12, and the reason that I have them at 12 is for mostly the same reasons that you mentioned. I do like some of the trades that he made because Blissey is the lesser of the two as far as Chansey Blissey goes, and on top of it, it's such setup fodder, and he really needed more speed. So getting a Greninja with, at 2 decent stabs with like a Scald or Surf and a Dark Pulse is going to be really useful. Ariados really served no purpose to his team because, again, setup fodder and sticky webs are not going to help his team that much because he's in an awkward speed tier. But it's still not a great team. It's kind of disjointed, and he's going to have 6-slot syndrome. So it's going to be fairly easy to predict what he's going to bring. So that's why I have him at 12.
For sure. Now, one team that we both had down quite low is the Chicago Flock. They actually came in at 13th, man. I know people are going to be like, oh, why do you have them at 13th? It doesn't look like it's got that much team. I think the big reason why I've got them higher than the Horluchas is because if you look at the Horluchas team, I feel like there aren't as many huge threats to deal with. Like, don't get me wrong, Jirachi and Kira and Black are scary, Mega Altari can be scary. Other than that, especially since Embor has been dropped, Embor is one of the best wall breakers in the game, and I can't believe he dropped it. But if you look at the Chicago Fox team, it may not be the most balanced team, but Mega Absol, Honchkrow, Volcarona, Crawdon, and Thunderous Therian are serious threats that are going to be really, really hard to deal with. So I'm kind of saying this more as I put them above the Holuchas because I feel like the Flock are going to be a harder team to prep for, but at the same time, I feel like the Flock are going to be an easier team to beat because there is just zero balance on this team. It basically loses to a Grass-type Pokemon, more or less. Most of the time, like the combination of Grass and Fairy pretty much destroys this team, even though they have the Deblade. But he does have a decent Defogger and Spinner combo, so it means that Volcarona is kind of safe, and you never know, it could be good, but for me, it just has to be very, very low. There's just no balance, man.
Yeah, and I have them at 14. And the reason why is like like Embor or Conkeldurr or Infernape, any one of those Mons is just going to sweep 90% of his team. I mean, it does not have a solid resistance to fighting in any real way, other than like Alola or Slurpuff. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have a solid defensive core, and because it's so weak to fighting and dark type fighting types, it's like I couldn't put them very high. So hopefully he can make some trades and stuff to clean that up.
Definitely. Alright, in at number 12, I had the Violet City Moltres. Now, I actually had these guys a bit lower than people might expect, and my main reason for that, guys, is, don't get me wrong, the bulk is definitely real. What I don't like about this team is that the majority of this team is incredibly passive. It can be very easy for a lot of the more experienced players here to play around, and the big thing for me too was that he only really has Superior in a very high speed tier. I think the next highest up there is Tornadus Incarnate, and even that's not in the best speed tier, which means a lot of these faster Pokemon can actually afford to run like Modest or Adamant sets, which can be terrifying. Don't get me wrong, I think that, you know, Digithy is great, but I also feel one of his biggest flaws here is the lack of like really big win cons. There's nothing really here that screams like, oh yeah, you know, this comes in and basically the battle is over. Or it's the same thing as like Diggersby and Superior are basically his only two solid wall breakers on this team. The rest is just more, he's going to try and stall you out, and I feel like that technique isn't really going to pay off for him. It's never really paid off in these kind of formats, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, and I have them at 11. So again, I agree with you. The team feels very disjointed, and I do like the bulk that he has, and you know, he has my mascot, so that's awesome there too. However, oh, and Archeops is a speed tier of 110, so it does have a decent speed tier. But yeah, Archeops,
but it's an Archeops.
One of those. Exactly, that's exactly right. So I mean, you know, you set up rocks, and it's already only 25% away from being into
defeatist range.
It's defeatist range, so it's one of those mons where, you know, if you can use it effectively, I'm always in awe. But it's pretty much, you got two tiers or two sets. You either got Head Smash, or you've got Focus Sash into Endeavor, or into Endeavor. That's like the only two sets. So it's like you kind of know what's coming, and overall I just didn't feel like this team had a counter team viability set. So not hating on him, I just really would like to see some changes on the team.
Yeah. In at number 11 for me, I have the Shinrai Pikachus. Now the reason why I got these guys a bit higher again than people maybe would have expected is because this is another one of those situations of the Chicago Flock. It's just a lot of very, very threatening mons on a team. That cool.
Yep, sorry about that.
It's a lot of threatening mons on a team, like just Excadrill, Talonflame, and Mega Charizard X. Just those ones by themselves. Like, you might be thinking, oh, you know, he has Talonflame plus Zardex, that's such bad team building. But if you think about it, there's not really a lot of Pokemon that can say they can wall both of these together. Like, you think of the classic bird checks, like your Rotom Washers and your Lanturns and shit like that. Zardex does not give a shit about them. It really doesn't. And I think the rest of his team is kind of lacking in a bit of balance. I feel his defensive cores are not ideal. The defensive core basically being Florges, Goodra, Sableye, and Quagsire. I feel like that's not really that solid. But I do think it's a relatively good team. The main big thing for me, though, that lets this thing down is because he doesn't have a solid defogger outside of Charizard X, it means that Excadrill is basically forced to be his one true way of clearing hazards, which is going to be pretty bad if he goes up against a team that is also packing a Ghost type. So for me, that's just the big down. The offense is good, but on the defensive side, the team is lacking a fair bit.
Yeah, no, and I have them at 9, so it's not too far away from where you have them. It's only 2 slots, and that's going to be on the next slide. So, but I'll just go ahead and rattle off pretty much why I have them there. If he doesn't send in his Charizard on the first turn or right before rocks, then he's in serious jeopardy between that and Talonflame. And I hate seeing Excadrill run Rapid Spin. It is a tier 1 and it is a devastating mon if you run it right, and Rapid Spin is just a waste of a move slot. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like it has the utility if you have to, but I don't agree with running that level of offense with a Rapid Spinner. So that's kind of why it's there. Plus, there's a lot of mons on his team that will not like an Earthquake.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Moving on, at number 10, and rattling off our first 5 choices, I have the Washington Talonflames. Now, I do feel like the balance is really good here. The big thing, though, guys, that really lets this team down, and I know you're definitely going to agree with me on this one, where is the hazard control? Where is the Rapid Spin? Where is the defog? Where is the way to prevent your Yanmega, your Rotom Heat, and your Chandelure from taking tons of damage every time they come in? Like, that's the big note. The offense, don't get me wrong, is really strong, and I feel like Spencer is the kind of guy that can use this offense really well. He's actually got a lot of stuff that he used last season to great effect, but the big thing for me is just that lack of hazard control really hurts him. If he just made Yanmega into a defogging flying type, even just chucking in something like that, I don't care like what you'd put in there, having something like that would severely improve his team and make it a much more threatening one to go up against. Because literally right now, you just go up against his team and say, yep, I'm going to set up rocks and just watch your team crumble.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have them in the same spot. And primarily the reason is exactly what you said. You know, I think he could even pick up like a tier 5, like, for example, like even like Wartortle. I mean, anything. And then he'd actually have some more points to put into another Mon and not waste it on, you know, something that needs to Rapid Spin. So I agree. I think he's really going to feel a lot of pain with that, especially with Chandelure and Rotom Heat. You know, neither one of them is going to appreciate coming in on rocks.
For sure. Alright, so that's going to wrap up the bottom 5. We're now going to move on to the middle 5, as you guys can see now. What I'd actually like, before we move on straight away to the middle 5, is D-Pad, were there any teams that maybe I'd put a little bit higher in my rankings that you would like to discuss that you'd had a little bit lower?
Not right now. I definitely think as we get into the top 5 or 6 that we're gonna have a lot more discussion. I think these lower tier, I mean, you know, like when you talk about like anything from 14 to like 8 is so subjective that like I think we're gonna see drastic changes between week 1 and week 2. So. All right.
Well, I think
right now we're good.
Yeah. Would you like to kick us off then for the next part by talking about the team that you currently have at number 9?
All right, so number 9 for me, we already talked about. That was the Pikachus.
Oh, okay.
So my number 8 is the Toronto Luxrays. And the reason that I put them here is, you know, it's a very middle of the road team. They kind of have some strange combo of mons. And it seems a little bit disjointed to me. Like I'm not sure how he's going to run it. So I had a hard time placing him anywhere. Just because so many of his mons are kind of all over the place. You know, like I like the Gardevoir. I like that he has a Firewater Grass core and he's got the Fairy Dragon Steel. I don't see it gelling very well. I don't know how else to phrase it. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'd love to hear your opinion though.
That's all good, man. I might talk about my opinion on the Lux race a little bit later on, just because I have put them significantly higher than the number 8 spot. So I feel that when we get to the top 4 for each of us, we can go into a bit more depth on those teams, and spoilers, they are in my top 4, so I think I might just save that chat for later. But what I'd like to talk about is my number 9 team that I have, which is the Texas Nightmare. Now, the main issue with this team, and I think we kind of discussed that a little bit in the draft recap, is there's a lot of glass cannons in this team. You're looking at like Zeb Striker, Jumpluff, Frostlass, Ninetales, Gengar, and Alakazam as the main ones there. It's a lot of Pokemon that basically can hit really hard, but a light breeze can knock them over. I do actually like the pickup of Mega Steelix on this team. It's really solid. I feel like it is lacking a good fairy type that would, I feel, really improve this team if he could get it. But I feel it's not a necessarily bad team, which is why I have it quite higher. I think that he has a good spinner and a good defogger, which is great. Not super convinced on the Jumpluff pick. I feel like he could have definitely gone with a better lower tiered grass type. I feel like there's a lot of better options there than Jumpluff, but maybe it was because of speed tiers, he wanted something fast. But then again, he already had Gengar and Alakazam, so then I'm just like, well, and also Zeb Striker, so I feel like...
And Starmie.
Yeah, he has so many good speed tiers already. I feel like if he was choosing Jumpluff for speed, that's just not cool. And he has like a lot of things that are quite weak to ice, which isn't great, but he does have a Vaporeon, but freeze dry is a thing, so I don't know. I feel his team is quite good. The offenses are very much stacked, but I feel that there's just way too many weaknesses, and the big thing that's going to kill his team this season, I feel, is a move called Knockoff. He has, in total, 4 of his 12 Pokemon that are severely weak to Knockoff, and 3 that pretty much die if they get hit by Knockoff, being Gengar, Alakazam, and Frostlass. So I feel like Sash Alakazam is going to be becoming a lot this season because of that.
I totally agree. I have them at 7 for a lot of the same reasons. It's just a hyper offensive, frail team. I just, like you said, Knockoff is going to wreck so much of his team. I like his walls between the mix between Steelix, Mega Steelix and Vaporeon. That works really well. But it's not enough when, you run a team that's hyper offense. So I have him at 7. We'll see. We'll see how he does.
I'm gonna tell you one Pokemon he should put up a Jumpluff that would make his team so much more terrifying. Get a Lilligant in there. People don't understand how good Lilligant is in NU. I would definitely consider getting that thing, especially since you have the Drought Ninetales. I believe it's Drought Ninetales. For that many points, being able to get that with the Chlorophyll Lilligant could be actually a really, really nice combo that could work really well for him. So that's definitely food for thought. Jumpluff obviously gets Chlorophyll too, but I feel like Lilligant can make use of it more than a Jumpluff can. But we're going to move on. My number 8 pick, which I know we definitely got this one a bit different, I believe, is the Boston Keldios. Now, obviously, the team has some issues with a certain Pokemon. I know you highlighted, and you were talking about how it's a bit weak to Greninja, but one of the big factors is that he does have a dry skin. Yeah, I'll take care of that. It's fine. I'll take care of it. Fine. Give it to it now. Sorry about that. I had to sort out some other stuff. Super quick while recording, but basically, you're saying it's kind of weak to Greninja. However, you have to factor in that there is the dry skin Heliolisk, which Greninja can't really touch that badly unless it's running the physical set, which is really not that ideal. And also Suicune, although it can go for the grass knot on Suicune, the big thing you have to remember is that this is not going to be Protean Greninja. This is going to be a regular run-of-the-mill Torrent, which means that it's not going to hurt Suicune as much, and Suicune can just go for one Calm Mind and pretty much stall out the Greninja too. However, I will say the team itself it's kind of balanced, but it's also kind of lackluster. There is a huge dependent on this Leavanny to give it decent speed tiers. Its fastest speed is the Mega Diancie at 110, and after that the next fastest is the Heliolisk at 108, so not super ideal there, and then the rest are around base 100. So there is a big dependency on Leavanny to get up sticky webs, or there's a big dependency on him bringing at least 1 or 2 scarfed Pokemon a week to be able to make up for the lack of speed tiers. I do like Mega Diancie as a pick, but I also feel like this team isn't gonna, like, it supports it really kind of nicely, but the big issue for me is he also has a very knockoff weak team. He doesn't have a Pokemon on this team that really wants to come in constantly on knockoff, except for Suicune or Landorus Therian, and I feel like neither one of those is ideal. So it's an okay team, but I think the offense is definitely what's going to bring him over, though, because like the combination of Victini, Lando T, Suicune, all that is going to be great, but defensively speaking, it is very, very worrying.
So, well, the reason I said about Greninja isn't even because of the water stab, as much as like Lando T is weak to ice, Victini and Celebi are weak to Dark Pulse, Metagross is weak to Dark Pulse, Togetic is weak to Ice Beam. You know, even non-stab, an Ice Beam is going to kill a Lando T. It's going to kill, you know, and then the stab, Dark Pulse, is going to kill Celebi. It is going to kill Metagross. You know what I mean? So even without Protein, it's still going to do a heck of a lot of damage. So I'm just saying, any kind of Ice move, any kind of Dark type move is going to be really effective against this team.
No, so where did you end up ranking it?
Oh, I have them at 13.
Damn, alright, there you go. So, definitely opposites on that one. Okay, moving on to my number 7 pick. Now, I believe you already talked about your number 7 pick earlier on.
Nightmares.
Yes, so
yeah.
For me at number 7, I actually have the New York Metagross. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm fully aware there is a Volcanion on this man's team. I know, it's there. It's staring me right in the face with its weird little steam cannons. But, okay, let me try and justify this. So, obviously having Sylveon, Volcanion, Mega Pinsir is great, and you have a Galvantula, which is cool. Here's the big thing again, and I keep coming back to it, guys, but it's a really important thing for you guys to understand. The only way RG's team is going to become speed threatening is basically through sticky webs again. Mega Pinsir and Galvantula don't go above 110. Hitmonlee is the only Pokemon that can without sticky webs by having its unburdened. Then again, you could factor in things like Agility, Gliscor, but we're not going to talk about that because that's dumb. So again, it's another team that is kind of relying on Galvantula to be able to get up its sticky webs to support the team. The other big issue is that if there is a decent Ghost type on the team, Fortress is going to struggle to spin, and so is Hitmonlee. Gliscor can have Defog, but people, you need to remember that in order for Gliscor to have Defog, it cannot run Poison Heal. You'll have to have something like Hyper Cutter instead, and that means that one of Gliscor's most devastating stats gets taken away from it. So there's that. The big issue for me is just it's a very slow team. Like, he has incredible offense, do not get me wrong. I ain't gonna deny the cores are pretty solid too. I feel like there's not really anything that breaks his team apart too badly, but the big killer for me is just the fact that it's the same reason why I have the Moltres so low, is that it's just way too slow, and other than maybe Mega Pinsir, there's not really too many win like Mega Pinsir and Hitmonlee are the two main win cons on this team, because like you're not really going to see Sylveon or Volcanion sweep up late game. They're mainly there to punch the walls to allow Mega Pinsir or Hitmonlee to sweep teams, but they're not going to be able to do that, especially if hazards are up. Mega Pinsir is not going to be able to do that consistently, and Hitmonlee, if there's a Ghost type still around, isn't going to be able to do that job. So I feel it is a really solid team, but it definitely is just too reliant on certain situations in order to win battles.
So I have them on my top 4, so we'll talk about that later.
Fair enough. All good. Alright, at number 6, I have the Broadway Blastoise. Now, once I saw Latias, Taunty, Rotom Wash, and Mega Venusaur, I got excited. Like, it is a phenomenal Volt Turn and defensive core wrapped into one. I really like the Cobalion pick as well as Darmanitan. Umbreon's a really nice pick. Ambipom's kind of underrated. Not a huge fan of Diancie in this format. Never really have been. I feel like the typing is just not great for a draft-based format at all. I also feel like it's a shit fairy to use, but that's just my opinion. Dugtrio is okay. He's like, eh. He's a great trapper. Don't really know how well he works on this team, for instance. Like, he's not really trapping that much that threatens this team. And the Jinx is a really nice cheeky pick because of that dry skin, and the actual combination of Psychic and Dark, Psychic and Ice is really nice. Only really Steel is blocking both of those typings, so that's really nice. The big thing for me, as the reason why I couldn't really put this team any higher, is because, kind of like I've explained with other teams before, there's no real wow factor. It's just a lot of really solid mons from OU and UU, and then a couple of like lower tier things, but there's no real big win con. Like, Mega Venusaur doesn't really sweep. The only thing really here that's going to be able to sweep teams is like a SD Cabalion or a Scarf Down Manitan. There's no real big way of him saying like, yeah, I'm going to send this in and just clean up the rest of your team now because you've got nothing for it. His basic way of winning is just wearing down opponents' teams over time, and then just going through, like, don't get me wrong, I think it's a very, very solid team, hence why I've got it all the way up at 6, but I feel there is just, it's just missing a lot of those really important win cons for a team. Like, you know what I mean when I'm saying like a win con, like, you know, those kind of things that come in clutch at the end? Yeah, so that's just how I feel.
Okay, so I also have them on my top 4, so we'll talk about that later. My number 6 was the Maryland Mianshaos. And the reason I have them there is I'm really struggling to kind of place them, because now we're getting into the teams that are like fairly well put together. You know, once you get into like 6 to 1, I mean, it's really easy to explain why you have them there and swap them around. I like their team. I like that they've got a lot of they've got good bulk, but I don't like the synergy with their team as much. It's kind of, like I said, it's hard to explain why I have them at 6 over 5 or 4, or, you know what I mean? Like, it could be anywhere for any of them. I just, based on the synergy of the team, I think there are other teams going further on that have better synergy. That's literally it. Like, they could be number 1 for me just as easily. You know what I mean? It's just, at this point, it's my opinion over anything else. So,
and they might be number 1 for somebody else, but you'll find that out later on in the video. Anyway, I'm going to move on to my number 5 pick, and this is probably the most controversial pick of this entire power rankings. At number 5 for me, I have the Kansas City Kakunas. Now, prepare yourselves for the hate comments in the aftermath of this, but let me try and actually take a second to explain this for you guys, because you need to kind of understand this from my point of view. I have battled Adam so many times, and most of those times I've ended up beating him more than I've lost, and I know how he functions, I know how he operates. And for me, looking back at the first few seasons of the UBC, looking at this team, it is definitely very underwhelming for Adam. So let me just break down like the good things about this team. It is a very intimidating team. Like, every single Pokemon on this team is a threat, which is great. And like Deep had said though, we're at the stage where every single team has that factor about them. So it's not a surprise that his entire team is threatening. We're expecting that at this level. The big things for me that let this team down, the primary thing that lets this team down, is the fact that his only form of hazard removal is Skarmory. Now, why you might think that's a bad thing, it's like, hey, it's got Defog, no big deal. Skarmory can be incredibly versatile on a team and doesn't necessarily need to run Defog. So by having a Rapid Spinner, it allows you to be more free with your Defog users. I feel what Adam's done is basically said, okay, if I don't want hazards to go up, like if I'm bringing Entei and Scolipede for a match, like, I need to bring Defog Skarmory, and that's basically just it. That's what's going to happen. And, you know, for example, if he's doing that against the Washington Talonflames, there's a Magnezone right there, so if he doesn't bring Shed Shell, Defog, Skarmory, he's getting trapped and killed like that, and it's just happening. And I feel it's just not a smart strategy. I have always been a fan of having a couple of Stealth Rockers and at least 2 ways to remove hazards off the field. So I feel like that's a huge downer for me, because even like the lowest teams on this list have 2 ways to get rid of hazards, and I feel like depending on one Pokemon to do it, it's just poor drafting, in my opinion. Like, you may disagree, D-Pad, which is fine, like, you can have your own say on that later on, but in my opinion, that is just really, really poor drafting to not consider that. I also feel one of the big things about this team too is that it is a little bit weak on the special defensive side. Now, I know you can run Assault Vest Tangrowth, but it is like base 45 special defense, so it's not ideal. Skarmory is more physically defensive. Same with Crocodile with Intimidate. Same with even Cofagrigus is more physically defensive. You can run especially defensive. It's not ideal. Neither is Ampharos. So I feel like really strong special attackers, like we were talking about the Texas Nightmare, I think they're the kind of team that can really scare Adam's team off, because defensively speaking, it's solid, but on the specially defensive side, it is very, very worrying. So I feel like when it comes to a team for Adam, this is very subpar, in my opinion. I feel like he could do a lot better than this. So for me, I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, okay. So we'll talk about why I have them where I have them, but I do definitely see what you're saying. So just keep that in mind when I talk about why I have them where I have them, because
Yeah, sure.
I do agree with you. I do agree with you on everything you said.
And like, guys, bear in mind, like, I'm just giving you my opinion. I've known Adam for a very long time. We are very, very good friends, and I'm saying this more as a friend to him because he knows that I'm always trying to make him, like, I'm pushing him to get better and better. So Adam, you know, I'm saying you have not as good a team as you have in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to go on and do well with it. I want to be proven wrong here. I'm just saying on face value, it's not as good as the teams he's drafted in the past, so I have to put it lower than the expectations I've had in the past, for me. But then again, that's the same thing he did with the A-Drive, and he went on to win the GBA, so, you know, shit happens. But,
Yep. So
yeah, you go.
That was yes, that was your number 5. My number 5 is the Scizors. So, and we again different opinion here, but the reason I have them here is again, it's an opinion based situation. I like a lot of his team. It's like there's some redundancy in it for me. I don't understand why you would have, for example, a Lucario with a Ferrothorn. Like, they're both weak to fire. They're both going to get hit decently with ground. If you burn them, they're screwed. That's, you know, but again, I have them at 5. So it's not like I'm saying that it's a horrible team. I'm just seeing a lot of this team, if you burn it, or, you know, I mean, there's some that aren't, like Latios, Raikou, but Raikou doesn't have solid recovery. But you've got Ferrothorn, Staraptor, Donphan, Lucario, Granbull, and Mega Beedrill. All of them, if you burn them, they are useless. And he only has one Heal Beller that I see. So when you run a team that is so heavily reliant on physical attacking and you don't have a way to get rid of the burns, I get nervous. So again, they're 5 for me. They easily could be 1 just as easily. So please don't spam us with hate.
Exactly. Alright, we are into the top 4 now, man. We are cruising through this. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail at this point, just because these are obviously the ones that we really feel are the best. So I want you to go first, man. Who is your number 4?
So I have the Broadway Blastoise here. And, you know, I think you had them at 6.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I have them here is I have seen so many teams win on League because of having a bulky team. This thing is a crazy bulky team, and he's got the coverage for it. When you have Mega Venusaur, it's one of the best Mons and counter team, and then he has a Rotom Wash and a Latias to cover it. He's also got, with the Grass Fire Water core, he's got Rotom Wash, Darmanitan, which is one of my favorite Mons in the format when you're looking at a hard hitter, and Mega Venusaur. Then he's got the Latias, the Cobalion, and the does he have a dragon? No, he doesn't have a dragon.
He has a Latias, man.
Oh, Latias, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to find the I'm trying to find the and Diancie. There we go. There's his fairy. So I think Diancie is a extremely undervalued fairy. You know, you put like rock polish on it and it becomes a threat immediately. So he's got really good cores. He's got fantastic stallers with Venusaur, Umbreon, and Rotom Wash. and Latias is a great setup sweeper with recovery, and you can Healing Wish with it. So this team is really well put together in my opinion, and I don't think they're going to be as exciting to watch just because they are you have switch-ins, you have stall. Like it's almost it's leaning more towards like a functioning stall team than it is even balanced offense, but it works. So I really think he's going to do well this season just because it's going to be hard to get over his walls.
Oh, that's fair. I don't know. I completely agree with you on those points. And like you said, it's that situation between like the 7th and 1st for these rankings where it's very, very close and hard to differentiate. So obviously they're going to be different, but we just highlight more points in regards to others. So that's totally understandable what you're saying. So for number 4, I actually have the Toronto Lux Rays. Now, I've battled Turkey before. He has beaten me before. I didn't have a very good team at the time. It was in this thing called March Madness. But basically, one thing I know about him, though, is he knows what he's doing. So he knows how to set up a team in a certain way in order to win. Now, the big thing that screamed out to me with this team was not only the fact that he had the Fairy Dragon Steel and the Fire Water Grass. The big thing for me was that, like, Mega Gardevoir, if you look at it, the main things that are stopping Mega Gardevoir from destroying teams are Steel types. And he has a Magneton to trap them, he has an Infernape to blow them away, as Weavile with low kick. He has so many options, but then also he has that really good speed tiers as well. Like, he has the Weavile, obviously, with the just amazing speed. You have Salamence, which is a fantastic dragon. Ape is so good. He has Ditto, incredibly underrated in this format with the Scarf. He has a solid spinner in Sandslash, as well as a good defogger in not only Crobat but then Salamence, but having the defogger in Crobat takes the pressure off Salamence. Slowking and Chesnaught actually make a really nice core together and actually pair really nicely with the Registeel. Like, those three together are very, very solid. And obviously having the Mega Gardevoir in the back is kind of that nuke that can be like, yeah, I'm going to click Hyper Voice and something is going to get seriously hurt here. He has a lot of good win cons. Like, you look at Infernape, Weavile, and Salamence. Just those three at the start are incredibly great win cons. He can run the Sandstorm on Registeel if he wants to allow Sandslash to get a sweep that way. So he has a lot of really good options. I feel just it's a very, very good offensive team, but defensively speaking too, he has very, very solid cores, and that's why I had to rate it so highly, because the balance, although you said you couldn't really see it because it's like a mashup of different things, there is actually a really good balance there. If you look at the core of Chesnaught, Slowking, Golbat, and Registeel, there is not a lot of Pokemon that are going to be able to break through that easily. And then you look at the offensive core of Infernape, Weavile, Salamence, and Mega Gardevoir, there's not a whole lot that's going to be able to wall that either. The only issue with this team is that it struggles a little bit against bulky waters, but then again, he does have the Magneton to hit hard. Mega Gardevoir's Hyper Voice is still going to hurt a lot of them, and especially since it can pack... Oh, did the call just... The call is having issues. I'm going to pause until we get back. Alright, we are back, guys. Solve those issues, but as I said, like, Luxrays, really solid cores. Main issue is just bulky waters, but Gardevoir with Taunt and stuff really helps out with that. So, overall, I think it's a pretty solid team. But let's move into the top 3. So, who do you have in at 3rd place?
So I have the New York Metagross here, and I think this was a pretty big discrepancy, I think, right? Yeah, 7-3, so. But the reason I have them here is the same reason that I put the Blastoise at number 4. He's got fabulous cores. My biggest criticism is that he doesn't have a grass type. You know, he's got awesome cores, but then he's got 2 Mons right there on the bottom of the list with Rhyperior and Palpitoad that are 4 times weak to grass. So, like, you can't plan a team like that. I think other than that, though, his team is fabulous, and it's going to hold up a really long time, especially if Fortress can do something like put up Toxic Spikes, or do they put up Toxic Spikes? I can't remember.
Yeah, it can if it wants to.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, his team is so bulky and not setup fodder at the same time. You can't stay in on almost any of his Mons. They'll hit you so hard back if you just sit there. So, but like I said, when you were talking about them on 7, you know, I definitely see what you're saying. Like, it's going to be a problem for sweepers later. So I would love to see him try to either drop either Palpitoad or Rhyperior and get a Grass type or another Fast Sweeper. I think he needs one of the two to complete his team, and otherwise I really think his team will hold up well. I mean, Volcanion is terrifying, Sylveon is terrifying. I've seen Gliscor run so effectively that once you take out any mons that have ice, if you do like a Toxic Protect substitute, Earthquake, or Roost, you're going to live forever. You know what I mean? Like, you can win just off that. So as long as he can get rid of the poison immunities and the ice types, Gliscor can win it for you just on that alone. But he's got a good pair up with mons like Volcanion that will eat up ice attacks. So I really like his team. I think if someone can prep for that, where they can hit him hard with certain moves, like a grass type, then he'll really be hurting. But other than that, I mean, Mega Pinsir is such a good mon for sweeping in late game. If he can get rid of rocks and Hitmonlee with Unburden or Choice Band, Reckless Close Combat is just going to destroy lives. So I really like his team overall. Just those few modifications, and I think it'll patch it up to make it devastating.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. It's another one of those teams that's in that kind of fringe zone, so it could go either way. We'll have to wait and see how it goes when the season kicks off. But yeah, number 3 for me, I have the Seattle Sizzles. Now, I have this kind of process when it comes to rating teams. It's like a checklist that I go off, and they ticked a lot more boxes than I expected their team to do. So let's just I'll try and break this down. So obviously straight away, Fairy Dragon Steel Core, it's there. It's not ideal, but the reason why I kind of have a soft spot for this team a little bit is because in a recent league that I was in, I used Ferrothorn and Gramble as part of like a 4-pronged defensive core, which basically also included a ghost type as well as a water type, and he kind of has that in Ferrothorn, Gramble, and Jellicent. They actually pair really nicely together when you think about it. Like, Ferrothorn obviously is weak to fighting and fire, both of which Jellicent doesn't care about. Gramble is weak to poison, which Ferrothorn is immune to, and it's steel, which both Jellicent and Ferrothorn resist. Then Jellicent itself is weak to knockoff or dark types, which Gramble deals with. The only real typing that these guys can't cover is things like the ground types and the ghost types. But then again, they have Donphan. He has Donphan as a really solid defensive wall. He has Latios that levitates. Obviously, Drill could be an issue, but then again, he has the Donphan to deal with Drill. Staraptor is obviously up in the air too. He has a good spinner, a good defogger. Magmortar, probably not the best fire type he could have picked up down there, but there aren't very many solid picks down the bottom there. I really like, one of the big things I'm a fan of here is Mega Beedrill on this team. So it can force a lot of Scarfed mons quite easily, but the big thing it can also do is it can easily bait things in that can just get absolutely destroyed by stuff like Donphan, Lucario, and Zoroark. So Zoroark's going to be a really important card in this team, because the way you look at it, because of his speed tiers and the way they're set up, it's going to make it really hard for the opponent to know when Zoroark's coming in or not, and when it's going to be utilized well, because if, you know, they think it's a Latios, they're going to maybe go into their bulky Psychic type to deal with it, only to get hit with a knockoff from Zoroark. So that can be really, really annoying. I've seen people use Zoroark very well, and I know Drew is the kind of guy that knows how to use it, so it's definitely a big plus for me. I just feel as well that with Beedrill and Raikou, they can just easily switch in constantly on each other's threats, and just be very, very frustrating with their Volt Turn combination. Raikou obviously having a strong hidden power ice means it also doesn't really care about ground types and want to come in against it. I just feel, although his team might not be the most solid defensively, I think it is definitely one of the most intimidating offensively. His offensive core is very strong. He has an insane amount of wall breakers. And I think Lucario is actually one of his most underrated pickups there. Having the ability to not only go on the physical side, but the special side is really important. And like you said, although he does have status issues, Latios does get access to Psycho Shift. He does have the Heal Bell on Gramble, and Jellicent doesn't really mind getting burned. Toxic could be kind of annoying, but I definitely feel like it's not too big of a deal. I feel like there's just a really good balance, and the team should do pretty well this season. But yeah, I think I rambled too much on that one, my bad.
That's alright.
Now, I believe we both had the same team at number 2, so I want you to talk more about the Baltimore Orioles than me, but I'm pretty sure we both had them at number 2.
Yeah, alright. So, anyone who knows me knows that Mega Lopunny is my absolute favorite Mega in this format. I mean, it's terrifying. There's nothing that resists its stab. It gets access to priority and quick attack, and it stab with it. It has really good utility as well with Healing Wish and Baton Pass. If you can set up and pass into it, it's again, I mean, it's gonna wreck lives. So Lopunny is phenomenal in this. I mean, you ask anybody, anyone who knows anything about counter team is gonna say Mega Lopunny is one of the best. Period. But then he has got fabulous walls to cover it. He's got Hippowdon, he's got Amoonguss, he's got Bronzong that all work really, really well together. I like that he has Stoutland with Hippowdon because the Sand Rush Stoutland with a Choice Band and any move is going to hit really hard and it's hard to deal with. Again, I like the normal types. I mean, I think that it's normal types. If you can spam a hard-hitting normal type and you have already removed Rock or Steel, you're fine. You're good to go. And then I really like having another Healing Wish Mon, and with Gardevoir he has that. He has the ability to like Scarf Heal Wish or Scarf Moonblast, or Gardevoir is a very underrated, in my opinion, fairy type. It's got great coverage with the psychic types to handle the weaknesses of Lopunny as well. Then he's got Sneasel, which is also immune to it, and there's not much difference, in my opinion, between Sneasel and Weavile. They work pretty easily in the same tier to me, even though it's such a huge shift. Blastoise is a really solid rapid spinner, and then he's got the good core between Amoonguss, Blastoise, and Hippowdon. I'd like to see a fire type on the team, but other than that, I mean, like, it's not a big deal. Zapdos is a phenomenal coverage for any kind of flying move to cover Lopunny, and now that it has static, if you run static and discharge, I mean, you know, you can paralyze almost anything, because even something like a Garchomp comes in, and if you hit the Zapdos, you have a 30% chance to be paralyzed, and then you're screwed. Reuniclus is a fabulous mon to work with Lopunny as well, and Haxorus is one of the best wall breakers in the game. So this team is fabulously built. It looks like he had the plan of, I'm getting Lopunny, and then build a team around it, which is a great way to do it, even though you don't need to, because Lopunny operates on its own. So that's my spiel on that. Go ahead and talk about what you like.
Oh no, I'm pretty much the same. I think the big thing for me is it is the best defensive core of any team in the league. That's the biggest thing for me. Offensively, yeah, he's got options. Like, he's got some good late game cleaners like the Haxorus and the Lopunny, but the big thing that draws me in is just it's really solid defensive walls that can get the job done, but also enough offense. There's nothing really special about the team, in my opinion. It's just very, very good mons that are very good at what they do, and the balance is clearly there. So for me, it's definitely a very easy number 2. Could have been number 1, but I feel like there was one team that was just a little bit better. But obviously you felt the same way, so what is your number 1 team for the season?
Okay, so I agreed with everything you said about Adam's team. However, he's the only person I know well in this league, and I have seen him do insane things when everyone assumed he would lose. I mean, in the first week of the PMC, if you guys watched that, he had to go up against a Mega Lopunny and a Hoopa Unbound, and he managed to pull it out. It's crazy. I mean, everyone, like, literally every single analyst was like, oh, he's gonna lose, and he still pulled it out. I mean, he's won on crazy odds. So the reason I have him at number 1 is purely based on everyone else on this league I picked based on their team only. And Adam I picked based on skill because I've seen how well he plays. He plays phenomenally well, and I think he can make this team work. But I do, like I said, I do agree with every single thing you said about it. Like, it needs to be patched up. I think he can do that with free agency pickups, though. So we'll see how he does. But that is the reason why I have him there. I love the Manaphy, Skarmory, and Entei. Like, those first 3 Mons are just so good. I'd just like to see him have a little bit more, like you said, special defensive walls and a rapid spinner. And it kind of goes back to, like, he has the Primeape down there, which is a good mon, but I mean, you can pick up a tier 5 rapid spinner and your team is instantly better. So that's kind of where I am with that. So you covered the rest really well, so I don't really feel like I need to go any further with that.
The other big thing I want to say about Adam, and this isn't me trying to be a dick, this is just me being honest, is Adam, especially in that battle against Kyle in round 1 of the D-League as well, one of the big things is that he is always good when it comes to the battling, but when it comes to the team building, he has openly said it's one of his strongest points. So in the past, he's come up to me and others for team building assistance, and I've told him this season in the UBC I'm not going to help him build. Like, I'm not going to offer him advice, because in the matches against Kyle and other matches, I've given him advice on what sets to bring, and a lot of times they work, sometimes they don't. And what I want to see from him this season is just seeing how he goes when it's just on him to build, because I found the times that I've played him when it's been us against each other lately and he's had to build by himself without me having to help him, he's really struggled and I've been able to break his team apart. So I've put him a bit lower because obviously I'm not going to give him that helping hand this time around, so I'm interested. But the reason why I've got Jack at number 1 is because I truly believe with this team he can win this season. So last couple of seasons I felt Jack was pretty close to being into like the final everything. He was close against CJ, but just got absolutely outplayed. And I feel like Jack, you know, wasn't trying his best, but I think one of the biggest influences this season is going to be Drew. Now, Jack and Drew, they are good mates, but they also going to create quite a heated rivalry between each other. I think it's going to make Jack step up his game. Now, Jack's also one of those players that hasn't really asked for help from anybody. He's the kind of guy that can build a team and back himself to do well with it. And I think his team, I look at his entire squad and I don't see a single weak link in that entire team. Like, he has so many wall breakers, it is insane. Almost every single Pokemon in his team has offensive capability to literally destroy opponents' teams. But on the flip side of that, he still has decent defenses, although it doesn't really look like it. You look at things like Arcanine, Kyurem, Seismitoad, Miltank, and Vileplume. They are all viable defensive walls, not to mention Togekiss in that sense. Now, one thing that people won't be like, you know, thinking like, oh, Mega Alakazam, you know, it's not really that great in the format. I don't think you understand how good Mega Alakazam can actually be for Jack's team. For instance, if you're up against, say, like a Life Orb Tornadus Therian, and you come in with the Alakazam and you trace the Regenerator, you can take out the Taunty, and then if something bad comes in, you can switch out, and if you've taken damage prior, you can just use the Regenerator you just picked up to get your health back, or you can pick up Sturdy, you can pick up Volcanion's Water Absorb, so he switches in on Volcanion, and Steam Eruption does nothing to him. There are so many avenues with Mega Alakazam. Another big one is obviously stealing something like Stoutland's Sand Rush to be able to outspeed it late game and be super clutch and reverse sweep an opponent. It's just a very, very underrated, super heavy hitter. I also think that his wall core is very underrated. If you think about it, Seismitoad is, yeah, 4 times weak to grass, but he has a Vileplume, a Togekiss, an Arcanine, and a Sapsipper Miltank, so it really doesn't matter that much. And then offensively speaking, Scizor and Thundurus Incarnate is a fantastic Volt Turn core. Not a lot of mons are going to be able to deal with those two together. Mamoswine is a fantastic late game cleaner, and Togekiss is very, very annoying during the mid game. He has a lot of decent win cons at the end, but the big factor for me, guys, is Jack has always, his back-to-back seasons has got to the semis, and I feel like in those seasons though he hasn't really tried his best, and I think this season we're going to see the best from him. And I think this kind of team is a team that can really propel him not only to the finals, but I think to his first UBC championship. I think he'll get competition from the other guys, but I really feel like he stated he didn't feel super happy about the team, but I think honestly he can still make it work. He's a fantastic team builder and an even better battler, and I do see him being the Season 3 champion. But that is obviously, again, like we said, our opinions on this. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, it's just how we feel it's going to go. But the weeks coming up, the not 9 weeks, that would be a lie, the 13 weeks coming up will tell us who we feel is, or who is heading on to become the champion. But D-Pad, I have thoroughly enjoyed this recording. It's been good to chat about these teams and basically prepare ourselves for the season ahead. But as you can see, guys, very diverse opinions from D-Pad and I feel like they'll be a bit more similar once the season actually kicks off and we see teams that are performing really well or teams that aren't performing well enough, and we will happily, you know, lay down the law saying, yeah, these guys need to lift their game and whatnot. But any closing comments you want to say before we finish this one up?
Just to all of those who actually managed to make it through this entire video, I promise that the next few videos will be shorter. We needed to break down each team and talk about why we had them where we have them. Moving forward, we're going to talk pretty much purely based on how well they play and if they make trades. So
yeah,
each video after this, I promise, will be shorter.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're basically just going to be saying like, oh yeah, this week, you know, they didn't battle very well, this didn't go right, and they should improve on this, and then just move on to the next team. It's not like we're going through the team and saying this, and this, and this. It's a lot more detailed in the post-draft rankings, but once we get to the week 1 rankings, I feel you will see it's a lot shorter, more concise, and we're more, like D-Pad said, looking at those battles. But that is going to do it for us, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you can check out more of the PMC stuff that goes on. Make sure you subscribe.
UBC.
Did I say PMC again?
Yeah.
Whoa. There's too many leagues, man. I'm an analyst for too many leagues. I swear. But subscribe here so you can see what's going on. Check out D-Pad's channel as well, and if you feel like it, you can go check out mine. I rarely upload, but hey, if you want to check it out, I ain't gonna blame you. But that's gonna do it for us. After this, basically, you're gonna be going into your week 1 matches to look forward to. There will be a selection panel thing. I can't remember what the name of the Pick'em Crew thing is, but it's coming up soon to look forward to. I think we're meant to be hosting that one too, so that should be fun. But yeah, we've just snuck under an hour, so go us. As always, guys, though, it is the Verd and D-Pad Gamer, and we out this bitch.